Too often we make even this path into something, to some big deal, some big thing that we do that ends up just getting in the way. We don't know how to use what is built up in order to go beyond what is built up. The path becomes like this stone path that we put in recently, something which people intentionally avoid. Because it's in the way. The stones are in the way of the path. They haven't been successfully made into a path. This morning when I came to chanting, there were absolutely no footprints in the snow on those rocks. Mine were the first feet placed on those rocks since it started snowing. A path which is an obstacle is not the true path. The path is the way that we make obstacles into the path. Therefore, naturally, when we see no one is using the stone path, we realize, perhaps this needs to be redone. Perhaps the stones need to be a little lower and we may need 2 or 3 times as many so that people don't very reasonably avoid breaking their ankles by using the path. This path then, this path that we see here, building up and building up, is like that series of stones out there. We think, yes, this is going to be great. We're going to build up lots of things on top of ignorance, and then finally everything will be okay. And we try it, and we try it, and we try it. And it doesn't work, and it doesn't work, and it doesn't work. And we think, but this time it will work. I'm pretty sure it will work this time. And then it doesn't. And we keep on trying this same way until finally we decide to practice spirituality. And spirituality means that the whole thing is turned around. We no longer build up, instead we let go. The great art, though, of the Fourth Noble Truth, of a path like that, of making it well, is that we change the world we live in order to walk through it more skillfully. It isn't just that everything is simply dismantled. It's that a new world is discovered. The world is made differently so that it tends towards freedom more than this one. This one has been made over a long time, so it's very difficult to get out of, and more it's difficult to get out of. Each next step, it's harder to get out of it. We have more and more customs that hold us captive. We have more and more technologies that hold us captive. And even though each of us knows deep down, we have this sense deep down that we want to escape from this, that we want to no longer cause suffering, but instead live in love. Despite that, on the middle level, we have been infected. And this insanity is functioning. And we also want to create a world of suffering and destroy it and ourselves. We can't imagine what it would be to go beyond creation and destruction, to that which isn't created or destroyed. So we keep on going further and further into it. We make technology after technology, idea after idea. And how much longer is it going to be that we can get free at all? If you read the ancient texts, it wasn't this hard back then. People would get enlightened regularly after a week or two of training. This was common. Of course, other times they'd spend 12, 20, 40 years training. But even during that time, we have this, it's recorded in the most ancient texts that we have access to. Get enlightened after a long time. Sometimes people wouldn't get enlightened at all, but that was actually quite rare. If you consider it the final assembly that the Buddha taught at, there were hundreds of monks, if I'm not mistaken, I believe.
I believe it was 1,000.
What?
I believe it was 1,000.
Maybe 1,200, something like that. There were many monks there. All of them were at least stream enterers. Not one wasn't a stream enterer. So consider how common it was and how uncommon it is now. Why? Because we have 2,500 years of more patterning constructed to hold us prisoner, to make us doubt, to make us get lost in the hindrances. Structure after structure has been created, and we have come to live in a world, we really see this world in a certain way that does not allow us to break free. We still barely can. It doesn't not happen, but it's quite rare. This world holds us captive now, built up and built up and built up, layer after layer. One of the most magnificent achievements, actually, is just that recently we started saying that things are getting better. The myth of progress has been very powerful. We believe it. The next phone is even better. And therefore, everything is getting better. And soon enough, if we just keep going in this direction, everyone will be happy. Now, there isn't even strong evidence that things are getting better for humans. Consider the percentage of people nowadays who have to be medicated just to function in this society. Just to function. That's it. They must be medicated. If they're not medicated daily, then their suffering will be so great that they're incapable of surviving. The numbers are going up more and more. Children, it's uncommon. The parents I talk to, I don't know what the numbers are statistically nationwide, but the parents I talk to, it's uncommon for children to be without medication. Most children are medicated. It's not clear that things are getting better for humans, but humans are not the center of the universe. What about all of the other species who are being killed, so that we can, what? What again? What exactly is this all about? As we walk this path, we build up a new kind of world. We build up a different sort of world. And that world we live in, and it liberates us. The great challenge is, how do you make a world that liberates, that can compete with a world that enslaves? That's the great challenge of this organization, of spirituality in general. It's not easy. This is the supreme challenge that we face here each day. Of course, in the end, there's no competition. The world that enslaves falls apart in the end. The world that liberates never falls apart. It's not subject to falling apart. But due to compassion, we look at this closely and we see the suffering, and we must do something. We give our lives over to this world. We no longer see this body as my body. No longer see these eyes as my eyes, these ears as my ears. What needs to be done, that's what we do. This is how we heal. As St. Francis of Assisi said, "May I strive not to receive love, but to give love." This is the shift that happens with the path. Peace Pilgrim spoke about this very clearly. Consider her, by the way. We have this story about Shuyun. And I know that many of you may believe, even though you may not admit it, that Shuyun probably didn't really exist. That this is just some story. It sounds incredible, and believe me, it will get more incredible. But Peace Pilgrim, are you going to say she didn't exist? She lived on this continent and she was white. Isn't that some evidence that she existed? So at least we can believe in that, can't we? Even if we're stuck in our little tiny world, she fits into that one, which is so kind of her. Let's remember, that's a person who, I know people who knew her. I never met her, but I know people who knew her. So at least you know someone who knows someone who knew her. That's pretty close. She drove cars. You know? Cars are recent. Cars are real things. I suppose you believe in them. Even if you don't believe in Shuyun and such. Cars, you must believe in cars. She drove cars. She eventually started walking, so maybe that makes her a little less believable. But before that, she drove cars. There were cars during her lifetime that she drove. Shuyun actually was in a car once too, by the way. We know about it. They went over a bump, and they didn't have as good suspension then. He went up, and there was something on the ceiling. He hit his head, and there was blood coming down his head, and he just didn't do anything about it. They kept saying, "Your head is bleeding." He said, no big deal. Very much his personality. But that's why we know he was in a car, because we have this story. Anyway, she also was in a car, and and Peace Pilgrim also talks about the fact that the goal isn't to get things. Getting things is both easy and ineffective. Anyone can get things, and after you do, you're not happy. It's hard to give. It's hard to change that so that you know how to give in order to be happy. Of course, I'll say, well, I give. But you know what happens next. You're exhausted and you feel like I need self-care now. But for Peace Pilgrim, she would give, and that was the self-care. That's a shift. That's a total shift. She didn't need to take care of others for a while and then, but I have to take care of myself too. No, she considered taking care of herself as simply a responsibility. It was just a duty. It was just her job. She has to take care of her mind and her body because that's something that she has to do. But the reason to that is so that she could give and give and give her whole life, because that's the basis of happiness. She had made that shift. I hear from many people, so don't think that I'm just talking to you. I'm talking to the group, because I hear this from so many people. And even if you said this to me recently, okay, I'm talking to you also, but I'm talking to the whole group. And even if I was talking to you, why is that so bad? Maybe I care about you, and so I'm talking to you. Anyway, I hear from so many people, I don't feel worthy of love. I don't feel worthy of love. What am I going to do to feel worthy of love? I can do this and I can do that, and I need other people to be different as well so that I can feel worthy of love. But I know this is going to be crazy. I know. It's probably going to hurt some of you. But I don't know what else to do than to tell you, if you want to be worthy of love, act that way. Sorry. If you want to be worthy of love, then just give your whole life away without reservations. And then it won't matter if anyone loves you at all, because you're worthy of love. That's that. That's a kind of being worthy of love that doesn't mean that anyone else has to give you love at all. You're already worthy of love. If they catch on, good for them. But you don't need them to love you anymore. You don't need to get love because you're just giving it. That means you're worthy of it. This means you're totally safe. No one can take that away from you. Doesn't matter what they do. Maybe they love you, maybe they hate you. As the Buddha said, no one is praised or criticized all the time. Don't try. Sometimes they praise you, sometimes they criticize you, sometimes they love you, sometimes they hate you. It doesn't matter. That's just their stuff. You are giving your life totally, without reservation, in love. That means you're worthy of love. And you will definitely receive it, of course, whether the humans happen to give it or not. But who are they? You'll receive the true love, not because you want it, but because you give it. That doesn't depend on anyone else. And beyond that, it saves the world. There are these two monks, and I think I can say their names. Two monks who I trained with in Japan, who are just the most mind-boggling examples of love. And I should say, now I have to say this because too many of you are confused. I tell stories about my training that may make you think that everything in Asia is perfect. And one of the ways that you may think that Shuyun isn't real is that you think, oh, China is perfect. That's a way of saying China doesn't exist. Well, China does exist. And it's not perfect. That's how it exists. So when I talk about these stories from my time training over there, don't think I'm giving a complete picture. I'm not trying to give you a complete picture. I'm trying to tell you the stories that will be of service to you. We learn about Shuyun because he's our spiritual friend, and we would like this kind of friend. I'm going to tell you about two monks who are also good spiritual friends. But they're not normal. No. Monks are usually just totally kind of annoying-ish, but not that bad people. Some of them are really the worst people you'll ever meet, and a very few are the best are so good that it makes you realize that that's what a person really is. And the rest of us are just faking it. So 2 of these people, Kyo-san, who was a lot of fun, he was very good at doing good without anyone noticing. And he and I played this game, which is a fun game. I don't know who came up with it. But the game was that we would try to catch each other doing good things for the community. And if you can catch the other person doing something good, then you get a point or something. And they lose. So both of us would try to secretly serve as much as... Every time you could secretly serve without anyone noticing, then you get a... I don't know what you get. But anyway, you do that, and then the other person's always looking out to see if they can catch you being good. Because if they can catch you, this is what we would do. There's a trick. If I ever saw him doing something good, I would thank him for it, and in that way, rob him of his good merit. And he would do the same for me, and so there's a real incentive to never be thanked for anything. And so you have to be careful that no one found out that you had cleaned the pantry or whatever it was. Well, it's not easy to clean a pantry. You can imagine, how would you clean that pantry without anyone noticing? It's not easy. You have to really be creative about it. But the person who was the master of this, the supreme master, was Do-ryu, Roshi's first disciple. He grew up right near Sogenji. Some of you have heard his story, probably a few times. An absolutely inspiring person, a Roshi himself now. Same Ryu as I and Ryu-san have. Ryu-shin, this Ryu right here. And it means flourish or grow. So his means his is Do-ryu, the flourishing or the growth of the way, of the path, of the Tao. So he wasn't training with us, but he would visit often for a month at a time, something like that. And I have to say, I never one time. So we were together probably for a total of maybe 6 months, maybe 4 months in the time that I was there. Many of you have heard other stories about him, but I never caught him doing something good. Not one time. I don't know how he did it. It's impossible, actually. Whenever he was at the temple, everything just went better. And no one could say why. But it was always true to the point that you could plan on it. You'd say, Ryu-san is coming in a week. Well, that's good. We'll sure get a lot more done. How long is he staying? About a month. Oh, great. We're going to get so much done while he's here. He never had a job. He never had a position. He would just, I'm just guessing, maybe, I don't know what he would do. Maybe he's invisible or something, but I suppose he would just sneak around behind everyone's back. It's to the point, there was one time I was the cook. I was behind. It was very difficult. And the cook then had to answer the phone. The cook has a lot of responsibilities. You have to answer the door and the phone, on and on. And I had all these carrots I had to cut. I'm trying to cut the carrots, and I'm behind. And there's a way you're supposed to cut the carrots. It's not like here, where it's sort of do what you want. There, it's much more, you have to do it this way. So I'm trying to do it, and it's late, and I have to do it, and my assistant isn't really helping, and dun, dun, dun. And the phone rang. And I thought, oh, then there's just no hope. I don't know what we're going to do now for lunch. Okay, I got to go. So I went, I got the phone. I don't remember what happened. It took a while for me to find the person. I finally got them, gave them the phone, went back to the kitchen, and all of the carrots are just cut perfectly. All of them are cut exactly better than I was cutting them. And I asked my assistant, who did this? And he looked up and said, oh, I don't know. I don't know. Oh. You didn't? I said, no, I was halfway through. He said, that's true, you were. I don't know. I don't know how it happened, but whenever Ryu-san's around, this sort of thing happens a lot. Too much. How did that happen? I still don't know how he did that. Whatever happened was magnificent. So this is where we want to be. This is the world that we can live in here. You're just giving and giving and giving, hoping no one ever notices or certainly doesn't thank you. And then you die. And that's it. It ends there, hopefully. That's it. It's not about storing up. It's about letting go, about relinquishing our lives. So please understand that as we walk this path, we're not just trying to gather one more experience and then return to the world. That's the opposite of what we're doing. We walk this path in order to enter a different world and not come back. And that different world is one of relinquishment. It's one of wonder. It's one of compassion, yes, but a compassion that leads beyond the world. So please keep that in mind as we learn